So Candice, I like to start every podcast with a couple of quick questions to help my audience get to know you. Are you ready?
Yeah, this is fun.
Okay, cool. So the first one is, how do you like to start your day? What's your morning routine, morning ritual?
Okay, starting my day. Well, I have a goofy 100-pound golden retriever. So I'm on dog duty in the morning. So it's always my lemon water in the morning. I start with a bunch of water with lemon, and then I usually will take like a hard-boiled egg with me on a walk with Koa. My dog's name is Koa, just because he's like, okay, dude, like I'm ready to go. And so I'm always just getting a walk in first thing in the morning. Doesn't have to be strenuous, maybe like a 15-20 minute walk. But after I drink my lemon water, and then I come back and I do some light stretching, nothing crazy. I'm not like doing crazy yoga poses, standing on top of my head, but I'm literally just like sitting there and arching over and just breathing and doing some cat cows just to get my body moving. And then I have my breakfast and it's like, boom, okay, time to get the day started. It's nothing crazy. To be honest, I was doing my gratitude journal. It's somewhere around here. And I was doing that for a while, and then just, life happens and I'm like, oh, where is my gratitude journal? Where is that thing?
Yeah.
But I have to say, when I did that, it was like the 5-minute gratitude journal where you do like 5 a.m, 5 p.m. I will say it like really makes you stop and think first thing in the morning, which is nice. So maybe this is a sign, since I'm bringing it up, that I need to like bring it back and dust it off and do that again. But nothing too crazy.
I think that's perfect. Simple, realistic,
Yeah, exactly. Realistic.
Yeah. Okay. Love that. All right. Next is, what is a product you are really enjoying right now? So it could be a food product, a supplement. It could be a book. It could be skincare, like anything physical that you're really liking.
Okay. Honestly, this is such a lame answer, but it's so real. I am loving reading a book that has nothing to do with nutrition. It has nothing to do with education. Like, I find myself naturally gravitating towards those books about gut health and hormones. And like, that's what I end up reading at night. And instead of like kicking my feet back and just reading to read, I'm grabbing the highlighter and I'm taking notes, and like, I'm not turning off my brain. So it's not a specific book, but it's me grabbing the book and going to the park and just like mindlessly reading without using my brain. I am loving that. And I've been craving that so much lately. The book that I'm reading right now is like The 7 Husbands of Evelyn.
Oh, we've heard about that. Evelyn Hugo?
Do you
like
it? Yeah.
Everybody posts about it. What is it about? I don't even know what it's about.
I mean, I'm probably like a quarter of the way through, but it's just like this very famous woman in Hollywood that has 7 husbands, and she's getting interviewed by this very low income journalist or news reporter or something. And it's right now, I'm just on like the 3rd husband, like the story behind him. But the title of it makes her look like, why did you have 7 husbands? Yeah. But on the flip side, I don't want to give too much away, but then like, it's her interpretation of like their relationship. And it kind of makes you like, interesting. Oh, so he was a bad guy or whatever it is. It's like a typical, like, it's a mindless read, which is exactly what I need right now. So that's what I've been loving. It's nothing crazy, but just like getting out of the educational of like, I need to learn this and implement this. And I feel like you probably can relate to that. I feel like any practitioners, nutritionists, anyone in like this space and that has social media, like we need to be educating and sharing more information, but it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Like, I'm learning to just slow down a little bit.
Totally. I mean, I feel like that was a big contributor of like different phases or times of when I felt like I was really burnt out, first in nutrition. And then I also went through that in spirituality, where it's like, I'm just living, breathing all that content. And, all of the books on my shelf are about food and nutrition. And I thought, oh my God, my brain literally never turns off. Or even like I'm going on a walk, listening to a podcast about it. And I was like, oh my God, I am unwell around this. Like I feel like I'm always just buzzing, and then it disrupts your sleep. And so that's something for sure. I've been thinking about that a lot more recently too. Like, I want to carve out a few more hours before sleep to really just do more things that are mindless, because I let too much that's related to my work bleed in, and it's a fine line, because it's like, we love that.
That's what I was going to say. Like, we're passionate about it. Yeah. Like, it's not a burden by any means, but exactly to your point, like when I'm walking the dog, I listen to the podcast. Like there's no shutting any of it off. We love it, but there's gotta be, because like you said, we go to bed buzzing and then we wake up in the morning and we get right back into it. So grab yourself like a nonfiction.
Yeah.
Or a fiction. No. Oh God, I'm going to sound like an idiot.
Fiction.
Oh my God. I was like, nonfiction is not fake. That's how I remember that. Don't get a nonfiction. Jeez Louise.
Get a fiction. Okay. Yeah. I love that. Okay. Next is, do you know your astrology, sun, moon, and rising? No. Do you know your human design?
No, I know I need to like,
when is your birthday?
Slime into your DMs. I'm an Aquarius.
Oh, you're an Aquarius. Okay.
I'm an Aquarius. Okay, I'm a January 30th.
So yeah, you're coming up. So you do know you're an Aquarius.
Well, yeah, I know that, but I don't know like anything else.
Okay, that's your sun. Okay, that makes sense.
Oh, that's innovator.
Sun? Yeah, that's your sun sign. If you're an Aquarius, that's your sun sign, your zodiac. All right, so Candice is an Aquarius. Well, next time we hang out, I'm gonna go over all your stuff.
I would love that. I would eat that up.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that's something that I really don't know much about, but I would love to know more of.
You will love it. All right, we're gonna do that. Okay, and then lastly is, what is a topic you are really interested in right now? Like, what are you learning about, thinking about, pondering? What's been on your mind? Something you're into?
This is something that's been coming up a lot with clients. So naturally, I'm like, I want to learn more about this. And I feel like I haven't had issues for myself. It has to do with glucose and like the glucose goddess. Are you familiar with her work?
Yeah.
And so I've had a lot of clients coming to me being like, I've read this book and it's incredible. And like, you should follow her on Instagram. And so I know, obviously with the work that I do, like blood sugar regulation, I don't have issues with myself, but just, I'm so curious about learning more for clients because they've been coming to me being like, oh my gosh, I had no idea what like Greek yogurt does to my blood sugar as opposed to a Chobani yogurt or whatever the case may be, or like the glazed donut versus like an apple. And just, I've been so into that stuff. Just to be able to break it down in a more easier sense for my clients and just understanding more of the glucose, because blood sugar and like even minerals, I've been really into minerals lately too, just how depleted people can be and what that means for them, whether you're trying to conceive, if you're pregnant, because I do work with a lot of women that are either pregnant or postpartum, and just how depleted you can be. And that stuff's been really fascinating to me lately, like diving more into that realm and educating myself there has just been, there's just so much that you can learn.
So much. Okay. I love both of those topics. Also because with the glucose thing, it's so fascinating to me because, I had done a CGM for a while, like probably 6 or 7 months.
I remember that.
What I found was that when I was eating high fat, low carb, like in more keto style, like my blood sugar was horrible. And when I was eating super high carb, like very low fat, my blood sugar was great.
I remember you sharing all of that. And I was like so glued to your Instagram because I thought it was so fascinating because it was so different than like what you typically hear.
I know. Like right? I did the white diet or whatever, where for 3 days you just eat white rice and my blood sugar was perfect. And I'm like, this is insane. So so it just goes to show how individual it is. Mm-hmm. And the minerals piece is super interesting to me because I feel like everybody's super depleted. What are the things that deplete us of minerals? Like, why is that so prevalent?
Stress, like literally stress. And I tell clients this all the time. If I could give anyone one supplement, like every person should be taking magnesium because we are so stressed out today that our bodies, when our cortisol, our stress hormone is going high, and our bodies are smart. However, they don't know the difference between a good stress of working out and a bad stress of like, you're late for work, you got in a car accident, you forgot to pay the bills, you got in a fight with your husband. Like those are stressors too. And then you go, run outside and go to a high intensity CrossFit workout. our bodies nowadays are constantly stressed. So our cortisol is constantly high. And when our cortisol is high, it strips our body of magnesium. So majority of us are walking around very magnesium deficient without realizing it because we are so stressed out. And our cortisol has got to keep going for many reasons. It comes from our adrenals, and our adrenals, secrete multiple hormones, but it helps keep our blood sugar stable and all sorts of different things. So our cortisol has to keep functioning. So it's just stripping mineral or magnesium and magnesium. And so we're walking around magnesium deficient, which looks like brain fog, headaches, constipation, high anxiety, major sugar cravings, not being able to sleep, all sorts of different things. And people do not think and realize that it has to do with magnesium. So to me, stress is huge, and sleep as well. Like we get in this vicious cycle because magnesium helps promote sleep. But if we're stressed, again, people are going to bed on their phones, looking at the news, what's happening in the world, or they're looking on social media, they're checking their emails, right? Like I also say this all the time. Our parents growing up, they left work at work literally because they had no choice. There were no laptops to bring home. Like my dad worked a 14-hour day. And like when he left it at work until the next day. But now everything's at our fingertips. So we can be eating dinner and we hear ding and we're like, oh, my email, let me check that real quick. So we are constantly in this sympathetic, this go, 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 go. And so our cortisol is go, 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 go. So again, back to sleep, that's another one that can really strip us of minerals because we are constantly, on our phones, falling asleep with the blue light. We're not going to bed and getting adequate amount of sleep. Then your boss expects you to respond within 2 hours to their email because they know you're home on your phone, and all sorts of different things. And then one other thing when it comes to minerals is just from a food standpoint, the soil that our food is being grown in is pathetic now. Like it is
stripped. It's stripped.
It's stripped. It's so sad. So like we're paddling upstream. We really are when it comes to nutrients coming from the soil. Like we're already depleted by the foods that we're taking in. It's sad, but it's so true, and it's only getting worse. So minerals are huge. It plays a huge part. And it's just so eye-opening when you look at like, wow, this is what this mineral does. Wow, I did not realize. Like a lot of people are afraid of salt, but salt keeps us hydrated. There's a whole nother thing we could get into, but yeah. A lot of controversy around salt, but like we need it. And a lot of our foods don't have it anymore naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the thing is we're like with the stress, which is what, like the root cause of everything, right? Like the problem is stress
of everything. Yes.
And I
believe it.
What messes with your heads, like people's heads so much is, and for me, the same, like our baseline is so skewed that we can't even tell when we're stressed, Yeah. And then I also think about, I was talking to my friend about this. We talk about this all the time. Like sometimes all of the different things I do for my health turn into a stressor. I'm like, gotta fit this. I gotta do my sauna. I gotta do, my coffee enema. I gotta do this, gotta get my IV. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm stressed out with all my health, all my health things, and so I think
so true.
I mean, it definitely is paddling upstream. And I think that's the other thing to think about for everybody listening. Like so often, and I'm sure you get this all the time with clients, like you'll ask a client how their stress levels are and they're like, oh, I'm good. I'm fine. It's kind of like when people say like, oh yeah, my digestion's great. And 10 minutes later, they're like, yeah, I poop once a week. You're like, no, your digestion is not great.
You start peeling back the layers.
Yeah. Right. And so I think for us to give ourselves more grace, because your body, like you might think you feel fine, but your body can be super, super stressed.
It's so true. And the other thing too is where everybody's stressed. So everyone's having gut issues, everyone's having hormone imbalances. So what's common, people are starting to see as normal, and it's so not the case. Even my family growing up, like we've all had gut issues growing up, but that was normal. Like I was the gassy one. My mom complained of having stomach pains, and she still does. My dad burped all the time. Like that was our norm. And so I thought, oh, my stomach is supposed to hurt after I eat this, or whatever the case may be. But really, then when I started to heal myself, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have to feel that way. I can heal and not be uncomfortable. But as a society, to your point, everybody everyone's skewed. They don't know what thriving is supposed to feel like. because everyone around them is also feeling, oh yeah, I too, like I get headaches all the time now, or, oh my gosh, yeah, like I'm bloated all the time. I look like swollen. My fingers are swollen. Everyone's feeling that. So they think, oh, it's normal, but it's so not. It does not have to be that way.
100%. And I feel, I don't know if you had this, but when I started going through my healing journey with chronic illness, I had a lot of people who had been in my life for a long time make comments like, you've always been fine. Where did this just come from? And I was like, I wasn't always fine. I just didn't know that I wasn't fine. And now I realize that I was not fine.
Yes. I have a great example, and it's from my mom. It's from my mom, but I'll never forget it. I was dealing my big journey with cystic acne, and I was, determined to change my diet, and my acne was very stubborn. And so it wasn't getting any better. And I remember my mom looking at me being like, why don't you just go back to the way that you were eating, because you were fine then? And that moment, I'll never forget it. I was just like, oh, you don't get it. Like you do not get it. You think, and I come from a standard American diet. Like I'm very different now than how I grew up. Like I grew up on the frozen pizzas and McDonald's, and, I was very athletic. So I didn't look like I was unhealthy, but I ate unhealthy. We had, when my dad would be home on his day off, that was our home cooked meal. But other than that, it was like frozen chicken nuggets and all of that. So all that to say, I just, when my mom was like, just go back to how you were eating, it's like, oh my gosh, like our system is so broken. People just think, to your point, like it was my mom that thought the same thing, was like, just go back to what was working, because clearly what you're doing isn't working. It's like, no, I just need more time to heal. And then when I'm on the other side of it, where I have healed and my skin's so much better, and then she's like, I'm so proud of you for sticking with it. But most of us are just like, nope, like I'm going back. I don't want to say throw in the towel, because healing is such a personal journey and it's so difficult to do. But a lot of people, and I definitely thought I had setbacks too, where I was like, I give up. This isn't working. Why isn't this happening fast? As a society, we want things fast. Everything's fast on our phones. Amazon's fast. We can get people to get our groceries for us fast. But healing holistically is not fast, but we want it to be.
We really do want it to be.
I know.
And sometimes it feels like it's getting worse before it gets better, right?
It usually does, which is the hardest. Yeah.
Well, so I want to get into it, because I want to get into your health journey, and where that started, because I think we can peel out a lot of really helpful nuggets from that journey and what that really looked like realistically. Because I know you had many different things going on, and you tried a lot of different paths to healing, and like you stuck with it. Like it didn't happen in just a few months, right?
No.
So take us back to the beginning. Like what was going on for you? And then what did it look like for you to start that path to healing?
Yeah. So I take a deep breath in, because I'm like, oh gosh, it was not a short journey. I mean, it's years. And I'm always hesitant when it comes to the acne part of it, because acne is so specific. When I work with acne clients, like I see them so frustrated and self-conscious, because it's something that we see on our skin. We look in the mirror, we brush our teeth. Like it's something that is a reminder all the time. So I'm very hesitant to tell people how long it took me to heal my skin, because it's such a personal journey. And for me, mine stems back from years and years. I mean, we're talking, I'm 32 now, and I started birth control at 16. Like we're talking years for me to get to where I am now. But I started, I was 16 years old and I had acne, and I remember going to the gynecologist with my mom, and she was like, oh, the OBGYN was like, oh, you don't want acne? Let's put you on birth control. I wasn't sexually active at 16 years old, but I heard, get rid of my acne. Yes, I'll do that. And so that was like the first time I really took like a pill or a hormone disruptor, that synthetic hormones, every single day in my little 16-year-old body for, I think it was 8 years. But of course, it's never just one moment. Like how I said before, I was the gassy one growing up. Like there were certain foods that always caused me to have discomforts, but I just like chalked it up to like, oh, everyone in my family feels this way, so let's just move on. But there were definitely signs when I was younger of gut dysfunctions. And then I go on birth control. And I tell clients this all the time that, say that you had chronic ear infections when you were 6 years old. Then you get on birth control when you're 16. Then you start drinking alcohol at 21. Like, you don't get a new liver, you don't get a new gut, you don't get new hormones. Like, everything starts to pile up. And I think that that's what happened to me. And I went on birth control when I was 16. And then of course I went to college and ate all the college foods, drank all the college beer, and I felt like trash. And I was the one that my stomach always hurt when I drank beer, but like, it was college. So we're going to spend, the least amount of money. And so again, it was just like a ripple effect and things starting to add up over time. And then in 2013, to really bring this full circle, chronic stress was the icing on the cake. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. In 2013, I moved to Hawaii. Just myself, sold everything, 2 suitcases, moved to Hawaii. I didn't know anyone. And then I went through a very emotional trauma situation where my parents got divorced. And I was now isolated on this island. I didn't know anybody. And I found out my family is on the East Coast. And so I found out my family was falling apart. And I was the farthest I could be, what I felt like the farthest from my family. And I was trying to put my family back together. I had no idea there were issues. It was, my brother and I were out of the house now, and just things fell apart. And I internalized that emotional trauma to its core. Like, I wasn't seeing a therapist. I didn't know anyone. I was so isolated where I just emotionally ate. I worked out for 3 hours a day because everyone told me, stay busy, Candice. Like, there's nothing you can do, stay busy. And I took that to a whole nother level. And I just didn't take care of myself. I was having night terrors, night sweats. And that's when things started to really shift in my gut physically. Everything was going through me. I was looking like I was 3 months pregnant after having like 2 scrambled eggs. My skin was the worst that it had ever been. And I couldn't figure out what it was, even though I was crying myself to sleep because my family was falling apart. But I never, ever put those two together until probably like 2015, 2016, where then I started to see a therapist and start to work through things where I was like, oh my gosh, this trauma, this chronic stress, which that chronic stress can look so different for people, right? Like, mine came from an emotional standpoint, but chronic stress can be a lot of pressure from your work, or your relationship that you're in can be, one that needs to end, or whatever the case may be. But if we're not taking care of ourselves, I mean, back in 2013, I wasn't doing meditation, journaling, grounding, deep breathing. I wasn't doing any of that. I was going and lifting weights for 3 hours a day, and then, emotionally eating at 2 a.m. Like, it was very unhealthy. So all that to say, that I think was a huge turning point. I had birth control and little things that added up, but then in that year, I really think was the biggest shift for me, was this chronic stress, this trauma that I never took care of. And so then it wrecked me. And I just rode that wave of like, I'm in Hawaii and I'm meeting people, but oh my gosh, my family's falling apart. But here I am in this beautiful island. I'm just going to keep going. And my body just couldn't keep up with it. And that was really, it was like the whole egg situation, believe it or not. But I was just like, ate 2 scrambled eggs one day, and I was doubled over in so much pain. And I looked so bloated, and my stomach was super tough to touch. And I thought, okay, wake up call, like, what the heck is going on? And that's when I really had to start figuring out what all this meant. Like, what was my body telling me? Like, this was happening after everything I ate. I mean, I would eat a salad and I'd go to the bathroom and the whole salad was there. Like, it was bad. And my face was a mess and I wasn't sleeping and my hair was getting super brittle and like things were just changing on me. And it was scary. It was really scary. And so it led me down this whole path of, I went to the gastro doctors. I did all the conventional things. I went and got the SIBO breath test, found out I had SIBO. I mean, leaky gut. No surprise now. The stress completely wrecked my insides, right? The whole saying that your gut is your second brain, like everything that I internalized up in my head went to the physical body, and I wrecked myself and I didn't know what to do. And then I was having candida and dysbiosis and the SIBO, like I said. And then, my joints hurt and my skin was just so inflamed. It was awful. And like I said, I went to all these conventional doctors and I felt like a lab rat. Like I went from one to the other, and I went to this gastro doctor. I had a colonoscopy. I had one of those endoscopic, like the throat exams, and everything came back fine. Like I freaking did it all before the age of 26. Like it was insane. Like I was working to pay for all of these tests. Like it was absurd. And I remember one gastro doctor looked at my back because my back was full of such bad, painful cystic acne. And he looked at it, gave it like one little rub down and was like, yeah, this is adult acne. You're just going to have adult acne for the rest of your life. And I left that appointment. Exactly. I left that appointment in tears of frustration. And that was the turning point for me though, where I was like, this guy says this is adult acne. And I'm telling you, it was in every spot on my back, like painful. I didn't even want to wear a bra. Like it was so painful. And I left there in tears and I was like, there's no way that I am settling for this answer. There's no way. And you're the doctor, get out of here. So it was tough. Like it was a hard moment, but that's when I started just, social media and podcasts and books. And I really dove into naturopathic healing and finding people on the island of Hawaii where it was a naturopathic functional doctor. And we did like antimicrobials and all of that stuff. Like we did a lot of work and it wasn't easy. I felt awful, right? Like the detoxification was so real at that point. But then I was like, you know what? I was working with these practitioners, but I was also learning so much on my own to the point where, when I got SIBO, they're like, okay, I want you to take rifaximin. I think that was what it was called. And I did one round because I was so overwhelmed by SIBO, but then it made me worse. And I was like, you know what? Wait a minute. Yes, this is a functional doctor, but I have learned so much on my own through this that I am going to actually hold off on doing another round, and I'm going to change my diet, and I'm going to, tweak this and that and work on stress. And I started to get better. And I thought, wait a minute, that was my doing. Like I did the research. I listened to the podcast. I was looking things up on the internet, and I really started to completely shift. I brought my lunchbox. At the time I was a teacher. I was a first grade teacher. So I brought my lunchbox everywhere that I went, even out with friends, I would bring my lunchbox because I was in control of what I was eating, the oils, all of that I learned really mattered. And I wasn't getting that information from people. And then it wasn't until I moved to California in 2018 that I don't know if it was the move that was stressful from Hawaii. I didn't feel terrible, but I did all of a sudden get this huge lump on my neck. It ended up being my lymph node, but I would just be standing straight and I had this huge, it looked like a tumor on my neck, and it scared the shit out of me. I woke up with it and was like, oh my gosh, this is a tumor. What is this? It was scary. It was big, bulging. I didn't have to turn my neck to see it. And I went to another holistic doctor, just moved to California. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? And she was the first person to say, I want to test you for Lyme disease. And this is the fall of 2017. And I was really, got sick around 2013. So that's a long time of me trying different things, getting better, and then some setbacks, but understanding that holistic medicine was the route that I wanted to take. And so she tested me for Lyme, and sure enough, oh my gosh, I have Lyme disease. And it was I was just another thing, really, add it to my resume. It was just so overwhelming. But what they think happened was how I said before, everything adds up. So what they think happened was naturally, as we get older, our immune system gets weaker and it gets suppressed. So they think I grew up on the northeast side of the state. So we're talking woods. I had ticks on me. My dogs had ticks on me all the time. It was just okay, you pick them off and you move on. So what these doctors think is, when you get tested for Lyme, it's not yes, you have Lyme disease and it started 8 years ago. You just find out you have it, and it could have been something that was dormant, or you could have just gotten it. So what they think is that I had it since I was a little girl and I just had a strong immune system. And then they think it was the perfect storm where the chronic stress stemming from 2013 and all of these different things that were happening to my body. And then I come here to California and it was another move that I guess was more stressful than I realized. And my body just kind of freaked out, and it was the perfect storm for the Lyme disease to come out from dormancy. And then boom, all of a sudden I started to get achy, like every hair follicle, every eyelash. I don't know if you experienced this. And that's the thing too with Lyme disease, people have such different symptoms.
Yeah.
Which
it's
is
all over the place.
It's all over the place. One of my friends, love her to death, lost all of her hair. Like it's so random. For me, I like every eyelash was painful. Every hair follicle was painful. Like everything ached for me. And I just felt like the Tin Man, where I was just like so stiff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just didn't feel myself. And so the Lyme disease was just like, oh gosh, okay, here we go. Here's something else. But luckily, you know, in California, I feel like so lucky that we do have so many options here. Like I really didn't have too many options in Hawaii, but here in California, there's so many options. Even when it comes down to the food that you eat, there's so many options here. So I did work with that practitioner for a while, and we did, you know, she introduced me to the sauna. She introduced me to colonics. And I went on this whole journey of colonics every 2 days because, oh, I wasn't going to the bathroom every day. And then the sauna, well, you know, the infrared sauna is 150 degrees. I wasn't breaking a sweat until 25 minutes in.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Now it takes me like 5 minutes, but that was just telling my body just how congested my lymphatic system how sluggish my lymphatic system was, and why I had this massive lump on my neck because my lymph nodes were trying to fight something, but couldn't get to where it needed to get to. It was just wild. And so again, I was like, okay, I'm going to really dive into things on my own. And that was, you know, I did the paleo and I did the, it was so long ago. I think it was the SCD diet. No.
Yeah.
But is that what a specific
SCD.
Carbohydrate diet?
Yeah.
I did that. I did the whole vegan thing. Like I've tried everything. I did the medical medium diet, which that honestly was, no one told me about it. I just like came across it on Instagram and was like, oh, wow, people can clear their acne by drinking celery juice. What do I have to lose? And it really opened the door to so much healing for me. And I think it's interesting because especially with the clients that I work with now, a lot of people come to me being like, I tried Whole30, it didn't work. I tried South Beach diet, it didn't work. I eat just meat, it didn't work. I then come and go, I tried all of those. Like I did all of those, and I did the medical medium, but I did them in different phases of my healing. And this might be just so absurd to some people, but I truly believe that I had to be in those different seasons and eat certain ways during that process of my healing. Like, I really don't think I could have done vegan when I was so malnourished and everything was coming out of me. Like, I don't think that I could have sustained that. That was when I was eating all meat. And then once I went from there, I went to the specific carbohydrate diet, and I was like blending all of my foods in a blender and eating it because my gut was so inflamed that I needed to bring down the inflammation. And I had to do that for a while. And I truly do believe that it's not one size fits all. And there's so much information now out there, especially on social media, that will tell you why you should eat eggs, why you shouldn't eat eggs, why you should eat meat, why you shouldn't. And you will find one after another. Like, it is so confusing and so overwhelming. And for me, I feel like my story is a little different, where I dabbled in all of those and they did help me progress to my next stage of healing. And the medical medium, you know, everyone has their opinions on it. And I have to say, it healed my flipping skin. Of course, you know, sauna, I was still doing all the things on the side, but when it comes to eating and celery juice, like, it really turned a corner for me at that season of my healing.
Yeah. Okay. So much good stuff to unpack.
Yeah,
Like totally.
There's
so much. And like, it's just crazy because I mean, our stories are so similar, like almost to a T, you know,
Crazy.
Symptomatically, I think a little bit different, but like, it's why it's just wild to hear you like share all of it. Cause I feel like I've never just heard you say that. I've heard like bits and pieces, right?
You really haven't.
Yeah. And everybody listening, Candice is the one who got me into colonics and then enemas. Like, so it's,
Yes.
So
honored.
I credit that to you. Everybody knows I'm literally obsessed with enemas. So Candice got me into that.
Honored.
She hooked me up with Elena's colon care, who's the best in San Diego. But you know, it's interesting because like, it was the same for me where I had been so in the low carb space and I did keto for a long time and I did carnivore and I had done, you know, the potato diet and low FODMAP and SCD and AIP and I mean, all the different things. And I had tried vegan, didn't really work. And then I did like the, you know, the rice diet. I did all these different things and I was really interested in the medical medium thing. And that's when like I had called you and I wanted to know what had gone for you because I was trying to do all this research and I actually had a really hard time finding, which is weird because it's such a big community, the medical medium community, but I think maybe it's more gated, like maybe it's like in groups or something. It doesn't seem that easy to find a lot just like on the internet outside of groups, to be honest. And I was trying to find, is there anybody that's gone from like keto, paleo, carnivore, like that side to medical medium style? Because I feel like in the carnivore space, it's just so, or like paleo or keto, it's so many people who are like, I was vegan, it destroyed my health. And then I came here and I'm like, is anybody telling the opposite story? You know? So because in my head, especially when you're steeped in that space for so long, and I'm like, it just fucks with your mind, right? I'm like, am I going to become nutrient deficient? What's going to happen to me? And so then that's when I had, you know, called you and you told me, you're like, no, I did all that. I did low carb. I did paleo for a long time. Yeah, for years. And it was like, it only, you know, it didn't help. And then when I did the medical medium, it actually helped me, you know? So I think that's super interesting. And I agree with, like, I look back and I needed all of those seasons, you know?
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think with the way society is, and again, everything at our fingertips, I feel like, I don't know, I could be so wrong, but I feel like people are afraid to say that. Like, no, that works for me then. Like, it doesn't really serve me now, but it certainly did. I feel like people are hesitant to say that because there's, you know, the other side of the spectrum where people are going to be like, no, I felt terrible doing that. Like, how did you do that to your body? And it's like, well, it worked for me. Like, my body's not the same as yours. Our stories aren't the same. My healing isn't the same. My chronic illness wasn't the same as yours, you know?